for now, Mr. Randazza, how are you, man?
I'm really good, man. Having a good month.
Yeah, no kidding. You're out there like your Twitter numbers are great. So that's all
Are
I
they?
care about. That's all that matters in this world. How's his Twitter doing?
Yeah, it's doing okay, man. But at least I have good news to report on it, right? I've had a couple of good First Amendment wins, including today.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really cool. It's a new area of practice for you. So I'm really proud that you're doing well in it.
One of these
why
days,
don't
I'll
you
figure it out.
why don't you tell us about them? I was catching up on your order or your demand 3 days ago to I think the Court of Appeals,
Yeah,
because you had won an order from the Court of Appeals saying, hey, there's an injunction on your weird little program you've got going. And then after that, Bev Canone and the uh, state attorney general have not done anything to actually go ahead and follow through on what the Court of Appeals is asking or ordering them to do. So tell me about it. What's
yeah. Right.
what's happening now?
So we sued the judge and the state police and the attorney general. It's pretty much just sued the entire damn government, top to bottom, in federal court. And we got a judge that just got the First Amendment issue wrong, didn't look at the due process issue at all. So we went up to the First Circuit on an emergency petition. They heard us and they issued an order that said pretty clearly, look, this is not kosher under the First Amendment. So they
Right.
told the lower court that we went into, do something about it. That court decided, what I'll do about it is I'll wait around a week and not do anything about it.
Yeah, there was
Paraphrase that judge.
because
But
they ordered like a not even a scheduling conference, a status conference, right? It's like, so here's a status conference where we're going to talk about where the case is. It's like, well, where the case is, you got ordered by the appellate court to do
correct.
better, and you're not doing it.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but it is anytime you're suing the government, and you think you're at a separate branch of government that is supposed to keep the other ones in line. I mean, when's the last time you saw a tree branch keep the other tree branch in line? That just doesn't, it's an uphill battle.
Right.
So then we went back to the First Circuit and said, hey, no one's doing anything and time's ticking. And the state police are taking the court's inaction as license to get even more like the state police of North Korea, including going after Ms. Walsh for just wearing a shirt in the zone that said Norfolk County criminals, and made her like walk through the buffer zone topless because they didn't like her shirt. I mean, that's just outrageous. So
Right. This isn't Miami. You can't do
so
that.
what ultimately we got is the First Circuit gave an order that said you got 48 hours to tell us what you're going to do, and then we get this order, and this order from Judge Canone is it's great. She kind of tries to save face, like, oh well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but then when she gets to the end, quiet off-site demonstration, so out of the courthouse on public property, that means the sidewalks, in areas and times that do not interfere with trial participants' entrance into or exit from the courthouse, which is against the law anyway, and that do not interfere with the orderly administration of justice, which is against the law anyway, and that are not intended to influence any trial participants in the discharge of their duties, which is against the law anyways, are specifically outside the scope of the buffer zone restrictions. So,
Okay.
no matter how you look at all that, she got that specific exception for doing what you have a goddamn right to do as an American anyway. So well done, Judge Canone.
Well done, Judge Canone. Two things. One, I first want to say I really like this line in the first page of your brief to the appellate court. It said, and this is one of those philosophical lines that goes and is very poignant. It says, urgency is required. Every day the buffer zone order continues unrevised is a day the First Amendment can never recover.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder of exactly what's at stake here. This is liberty being taken and removed, and you will never get it back. You will never have the opportunity to that day say what you believe, what you feel, what you need to say, what you have every right to say, what our entire country is based on on that day at that time, that's taken from you when the government intervenes. And people are like, well, you could say it tomorrow. It's like, well, tomorrow it might not matter, but
Yeah.
today it does. Right now it does.
Yeah,
And
we
so,
look, there were a lot of people who said that this was a crazy case to take because, you remember we did it last year. We did it through the state court system and we went up, we tried to intervene in this case. And I was in the courtroom the day that Judge Canone said, you can't intervene in this case. And I'll tell you, she was mad. She was
yeah.
mad that we tried. I wasn't quite sure I wasn't going to get sanctioned that day. So we went up to the Mass Supreme Judicial Court, which, I realize they're the highest court in Massachusetts. They have a proud tradition, but boy, are they not honoring that tradition with some of their recent work. For in that case was one of those examples because they looked at it, and I'm sure somebody looked at it and said, you know what, we can't rule for him, but we refuse to. We can't rule against him, but we refuse to rule for him because we're not going to rein in a judge. Well, judges, we're judges. We're not going to mess with the judges union. So what they did is they crafted this idiotic decision that specifically carved out any analysis of the public sidewalks, saying falsely that we hadn't raised that issue, even though it's splattered across every single thing we filed.
Right.
But okay, that's good because at least they wrote a stupid decision that was limited to some ethereal space that doesn't exist. So by the time we got to the First Circuit didn't have to say, well, we're going to be overturning a state Supreme Court decision. No, you're not. State Supreme Court made as my drill sergeant used to say, around, you played pussy and you got.
That's a good expression. So it occurs to me we kind of came into this thing hot without going to the issues. So can we get a broad level overview of what exactly prompted this case from the start? So my understanding is that there was a buffer zone created where there's it's between the courtroom and the crowd, I guess, where you're not allowed.
Back up for how it happened.
Right.
The prosecution asked for a buffer zone to protect Karen Reed's Sixth Amendment rights. So the prosecution is worried about Karen Reed getting a fair trial for exactly 1 microsecond in this entire case.
I was about to say that doesn't sound like them. I don't believe you.
And that's when people are out there holding up signs that they don't like. Now, my guys have been out there since November holding up signs, say Judge Canone is a clown, Judge Canone is corrupt. They don't like her. Hey,
right.
I don't know, for all I know, she may be the greatest person in the whole world, but they don't like
Who cares? Her. You're a judge. People get to say that about you. Yeah. They get to say damn near anything.
Yes. So the prosecution, after last year's buffer zone win, decided to seek another one, but an even bigger one. And in their motion, they even asked specifically for the right to use physical force against protesters. Like, think of what a piece of shit put pen to paper writing that. Maybe I'm not supposed to go that far, but I'm getting inspired by Nick Rekieta here. But
as everyone should be.
What kind of a piece of shit are you that you sit down and you say, Judge, also give us we want the First Amendment suspended, and we want the right to use nightsticks to make sure it doesn't rear its beautiful head.
When people encounter law enforcement in the wild, and it's not in like you're driving by wondering why that person got pulled over, but you actually encounter the system, you go, wait a minute, someone had to sit down and ask if they could beat the shit out of people because of what they say. That's crazy. That's actually insane. And then a judge says yes.
No, she didn't. To her credit, she didn't say yes.
Not in this case.
She didn't give them that. But what she did is she gave them the buffer zone, saying there'll be no expression here. Now, here's the funny part. See, what the government didn't get, and I think what some of the lower courts didn't get, is the difference between a content-based restriction and a viewpoint-based restriction.
Right.
No protest. Protest is content.
Yep.
Pro Karen Reed, anti Karen Reed, that's viewpoint. Now you can drive through that buffer zone before with a big sign, on your truck saying "Eat at the Olive Garden." God help you. But but you can't go through it with one that says, whatever, free Karen Reed.
Right.
So we challenged this in federal court on an emergency basis, and the federal court gave us a real quick hearing. Judge June gave us a hearing immediately. We come in, And nobody in that courtroom except me seemed to understand the difference between viewpoint and content based. And he decided, well, this is just fine. Essentially took the Spicuzza decision, the one from last year, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts did, which I had to put in my first circuit briefing to make it very clear. I had a point heading that said, the Spicuzza decision is useless. And I explained that since that decision specifically excluded all of the public sidewalks, you have a whole new fresh slate here. So take a look at it. And the First Circuit, I think, did a damn good job. I mean, I would have rather they had just told them what to do, but I think they gave the district court more credit than it deserved, and then gave Judge Canone more credit than she deserved, saying to the district court, do it again. And in the meantime, Judge Canone had time to do this on her own without a order, but of course didn't do it. Now I got a funny feeling there's somebody, I gotta give credit to John Hitt, who is the attorney for the Commonwealth. Sometimes you're up against somebody who you tell is just a government scumbag doing government scumbag things. And then sometimes you see a guy who's a damn good guy just doing his job. That's John there. He did his job honorably. He was never sleazy to us, not at all. And I think that what happened here is he finally got somebody on the phone and said, listen, they're right. Do the right thing. And now you got the right thing done.
Well, that's crazy, man. Like, you're out there, and it's great that you got this order, because it's wild how often we still say these are clear violations of the First Amendment. Like when you go in, and I mean, this is what you do. So you're seeing this more than anybody, but you're going in, you're saying these are clear violations of the First Amendment. This thing's been around for a while. It's not new. It hasn't changed. And the scope, like, I know the court has pared down some of it to say, well, it needs to be specific, and we can infringe on it a little bit if as long as it's narrowly tailored and doesn't sweep up other activities. That's great. But by and large, like, this, what country are they from where they go, you know what, there's a space around a courthouse where you can't say stuff?
Yeah.
And it's like, where, when, why, when has this ever been okay?
No, it never has been. I mean, the only times I've seen situations like this where it's okay, look, maybe if there's like nuclear waste in that and they're worried the Joker's going to come steal it or something like that. I don't know. But you don't put complete lockdown. And if you look at this, the insanity of it, if you look at the map, it even covers the public library.
Yeah.
So you couldn't stand on the front lawn of the public library behind the courthouse, which would have had no impact on anything. Now, I don't know who wants to protest on the front steps of the public library, but when you do that and everybody says, yeah, that's fine, not even you could protest on the public library line, because they're power drunk, because nobody reins them in, because you've got problems with, first of all, how many lawyers out there can you get to do it? There's not a lot of us who would be willing to do this.
Right, because who's a paying plaintiff? Like, I mean, that's the
well,
right. Like, no, candidly, obviously, I'm one of your clients. Your fees are
this, Nick.
I know your fees are consummate to your experience, but I'm also not an idiot. Like, lawyer fees are based on availability, and they're based on a whole bunch of things. But sometimes you go with people who can pay, and they fund for the issues that can't be paid for. There isn't a plaintiff who could pay for this unless they got specifically harmed and happened to be moneyed enough to do it.
Yes,
it's not cheap work.
No, but the Center for American Liberty, great organization, is funding this partially. It's certainly nowhere close to what my rates are, but they said we'll contribute something to it so you can keep the doors open. So we are. So anybody?
Yeah, you're struggling over there. No, I'm just kidding.
Anybody out there who's but we could not have done this without them. So look up the Center for American Liberty. I mean, make a donation to those guys. Those guys are jumping into the breach, not just in my cases, but all over the country when Liberty needs help.
Fire jumped in with an amicus too, right?
Fire did. Yep. Fire did a great job. The National Press Photographers Association and the First Amendment Lawyers Association all joined in on a brief. Great lawyer, John Mateus. But yeah, you're right. Because also when you bring these cases, the government has done everything they can to try to make it impossible to enforce the civil liberties laws. Right? There was just a decision that came out of the Supreme Court, the Lackey decision, appropriately named, that if if you don't have a permanent change, then you don't get fees from the government. So here's the thing. If I want to protest on Halloween and they say no anti-government protests on Halloween, and I win an injunction that I can protest on Halloween, my case is moot on November 1st.
Right.
So you don't get fees. I mean, they're doing whatever they can to try to screw us.
Yeah,
but
it's
but they didn't get paid a lot on April 19th, 1775 either, did they? But that worked out pretty good.
Yeah, they did okay. I mean, they not payment wise, yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't doing well there. But no, they ended up making something that of course the world wasn't ready for. And it's guys like you who are fighting for it in very specific ways. But the issues are so big. I mean, America is so huge and the encounters of speech so diverse that you can be fighting for this thing your whole life and you're still only scratching the surface of fighting for the First Amendment. I mean, you're one of the guys on the line, right? But there's every other part of the Constitution that's in danger at all times because government is insipid and it must consume and take away rights. It must make itself more powerful.
No, there are many of us doing this. I mean, yeah, I mean, sometimes, I look around and it's the same, five or 10 lawyers doing this everywhere. And it feels like the Hoover Dam's about to break and we're trying to hold it up with our bare hands. So I don't know how many young lawyers are out in your audience, but man, if you're out there and you have any inclination to do this kind of work, call me. I'll either hire you or I'll help you start a practice doing it. I want more competition, please.
If I were a mobile young lawyer, like that would be one of the most enticing offers ever, like to go and work with your group.
I mean, everybody pulled together on this case, working nights and weekends. I mean, we worked our asses off on this.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about this type of law that you're doing. Like you said, if you're banned from having Halloween, then on November 1st it's moot. This thing, it has to move at breakneck pace.
Yeah.
And you're digging deep in synthesizing arguments, especially, and I'm assuming it's going to get way more complicated really soon because you've got the advent of AI right on the horizon. You're already dealing with social media changing the way that speech is delivered in the first place and where the public forum is. And so now you've got this fight that's evolving technologically, and it all happens at lightning speed. So you got your work cut out for you. You should just get online and yell at stuff.
Man, I do. I spend all day, it's like I work like 18 hours a day usually. I get up. I mean, I'm up at 5 a.m. every day.
You're always on a plane. Like every time I talk to you, you're like, I got to catch a plane. Where are you going? Where's this man going all the time?
Yep. No, it is. People ask me like, what's your address? I'm like, seat 1B. But yeah, man, I am. I tell you, most of my work is done nowhere that I have offices in Vegas, Miami, up in Boston, but most of my work is not done in those places. It's always nice when I get one that's close to home. I mean, I've got a bunch of cases going on in Maine. I've got Texas. I mean, California. I mean, I'm all over the place.
So with this buffer case, do you think that there's just in how it developed and then how it followed the orders coming down from the appeals court, do you think there's an element of like just big enough town where there's deep roots, lots of family connections, lots of family power, or do you think this is just kind of how things go? Like, is there something specific about Canton that made this the ripe case to have this happen and then to fight against it?
I mean, I have, I don't want to delve too much into my beliefs about the supernatural and all that, but that courthouse has a stench on it ever since the Sacco and Vanzetti case. And if you think when I took this case on, it was lost on me that I'm walking in there as as an Italian lawyer trying to wipe away some of that, you'd be wrong. That was totally Sacco and Vanzetti's ghosts are in my head. And I realized maybe they did it, maybe they didn't, but they did not get due process. They did not get a fair trial.
I have no idea what case this is that you're talking about. I'm not Italian.
So Sacco and Vanzetti are like the Italians' George Floyd.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay, which may not be, the nicest thing to say about them, but we did
Right.
not. They were railroaded back in the 20s in that very courthouse. I think it isn't just about this area. I mean, I know there is a bit of accusations of great corruption in Canton, and Norfolk County's got something particularly wrong with it. But I don't think that enters into this. What enters into this is power loves to grow, and if
Yeah.
you let them get away, you let these bastards get away with anything. If they take an inch, they will take a mile. And America means something. Like, I don't do this shit for the money. I mean, granted, I'm not poor, but I could probably make 5 times what I make if I went and worked for some soul sucking big law firm doing whatever the they do.
Oh
Right.
yeah, like 18-wheeler accidents or whatever.
Oh, dude, forget it. Personal injury, you could do even better. I'm not even
Yeah.
talking about those. I love those guys, but yeah, I could make way, way more money doing something else. But this was the calling I got. This is like what I was asked to do. This picked me. I didn't pick it.
Well, you have to be the right kind of specifically for what you do, because you defend guys like me, and I don't actually think I'm that terrible, but you defend the bad guy, right? Like the guy who says the thing that everybody goes, "Oh shit, like maybe you shouldn't have said that."
Yeah,
And then you're like, "No, I'm going to say it again. You've
yeah.
called me and told me not to."
No, my client. If we had I was talking to some lawyers last night that were a guy who knew me was explaining my practice to other people, and the guy said, "So, do you ever have like you never have like a client reception, do you?" And I'm like, "Wow, can you imagine if I had a client? It would look like Moss Isley, but
Oh,
it would be,
please invite me.
oh my god, it would be hilarious, like Alex Jones running through, the Nazis coming in, the Satanists, the Karen Reed protesters. Oh my
God,
god,
let's
just
wait till I'm off probation though. That sounds like a fun party.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or just bring a lot of bail money.
That's what you hand out. It's like, here's your welcome bag. It's got $10,000 bail for each one of you. You've really covered really well what's going on, and I just love that you're out there fighting for this, because it has to happen. It's really hard to get representation on something like this anyway, and it's really hard to get great representation on it. You're the guy. Like you're the
Yeah.
guy. You're the speech sniper out
Well,
there in
thank you.
the
I,
darkness. So.
I take that as a great compliment. But it's don't forget I got a team with me, and then my mentors that helped me get here. I mean, this is and I'm just dying to spread the word on this. What we really need, what really, really, really we have as a problem is people always seem to think that free speech is for their team and not for the other team.
Right.
And I mean, even in this case is so weird how it became political. Because I'm sure you're familiar with Turtle Boy, the guy who really kind of made this become a big deal. And
Yeah, Aiden,
another one,
I interviewed him last, 2 years ago or so.
he's another guy that would be at that party. I represent him as well, and
Good.
in a couple of First Amendment things. Um, but since he is a somewhat conservative voice and behind enemy lines in New England,
Right.
it's like if you're liberal, you have to want Karen Reed in jail now. And if you're conservative, you don't. So all of a sudden, we have a case where you have the liberals saying, no, the police would never lie. The police are right, like uplift the police. And then you have the conservatives saying, we don't trust the police. The police are lying. It's just,
Which is
it's
the big flip flop. It's so weird, because I
yeah,
watched that happen through my lifetime. It's happening to our guys. We're supposed to be the guys who like the cops. It's like, no, they're not your
right.
friends. They never
No,
were.
it's I mean, I don't know. I think they kind of generally are. I mean, like I am really, surprisingly, in, pro cop in most cases. I like when I see them in the courthouse. I refuse to let them pay for their coffee and whatnot. Because it's like, thank you. What you guys do is thankless. Everybody treats you like shit. I mean, love the police, but
I love
they
police
got
officers. I don't love the police.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
how I would say it.
Yeah, but I've also, I've met cops too, where I got a client I have a couple clients of these First Amendment auditor types. And, sometimes they go and they try to provoke the police a little bit
Right.
politely, and then they'll show me a video of a cop doing 100% the right thing. And it's always great. I love when he's like, "Can I put?" You know, he runs everything by me before he posts it. He's like, "I'm going to post this one." I'm like, "This one's great," you know, because he's respectful to them. I mean, there's no reason when you're testing the boundaries of the First Amendment, you don't have to be a douchebag, right? I mean,
Yeah.
look, optics matter. You know, when I was telling my you know, I was on another uh, stream a few minutes ago, and I was explaining that anybody's going to go out there and protest
Stream
now,
cheater.
like do so, but you know,
Right.
do so with dignity. Act with
Yes.
dignity. Don't go out there and go police. Don't go out there and scream at people. You know, first of all, you can't yell at people because we didn't want the right to do that. You know, I wanted the right to have respectful, peaceful protest. You know, and anytime I've been in an environment where somebody's asking me, "What do we do to get ready for this protest?" I'm like, wear a tie, man. Like when they come and video you, I want grandma and grandpa law and order to look at you getting dragged away in handcuffs and have them go, "Well, he seems nice." You know, that it really helps. Optics matter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it,
And
you don't have to. The First Amendment lets you go out there. You know, Mr. Cohen went into a courthouse with a jacket that said draft, and that set up, you know, precedent that we relied on even in this case.
he's like,
But
it's a beer jacket, though.
but at the same time, you know, if you can be outside that courthouse today, standing along that sidewalk, not blocking anybody, you know, acting like we live in a society, you're going to do way more service because bad facts make bad cases. You know, here, luckily,
Right.
I had all good facts. You know, I had
Yep.
people who've been out there since November holding up signs, not bothering anybody. You know, Mr. DeRozier and Mr. Bryant, the journalists, they were just news gathering.
Yep.
Mr. Delgado was just walking through there with a sticker on his shirt. And Ms. Walsh was just out there with a shirt that said Norfolk County Criminals. So,
What everybody should remember that free speech is your right, but your dignity is your responsibility.
yes,
You know,
sir.
like that. And it's not just yours, it's the dignity of the people around you. And there is a time and the place to yell the N-word or whatever in protest. There is a time and the place to yell damn near anything in protest, but you're
Yeah.
not in it most of the time. Most of the
Yeah.
time, you're at the time and place where you should be quietly holding a sign saying, "Hey, we don't believe in this. This isn't right."
Yeah.
Because that's where the message is powerful, and that is multiplied by numbers, and those
And
numbers are
sometimes your voice is louder that way.
way,
Sometimes
and
you,
it's
you know,
amplified by the people who show up because you're not yelling.
yeah. Yeah. Or just even if you are showing up like that, you know, that quiet dignity is so much more powerful.
Oh man. Well, hey, it's I know you have a heart out like
I got
right.
a hard out. I got to get to the airport.
Thanks so much, Mark, for coming on, explaining this. Thanks for the fight, of course, and you know, thanks for telling people that I paid you so much because they believed it. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, my last check from that $625,000 check just cleared. Thank you.
Thanks. You're welcome.
All
You're
right.
welcome. All
All right.
right, man.
Take
Have a
care.
good one.
Bye.
Peace. Well, that was fun, right? Mark's pretty cool. Guys, that's if you missed it, that was Marc Randazza. The Randazza Group is a First Amendment law firm. They fight for people like me on a daily basis. They're the ones out there fighting for the speakers, not for the people who want to shut speech down. In fact, my retainer agreement with him says that I will do my best to pursue a course of action that preserves the freedom of speech to the maximum and will not ask the Randazza legal group to go against that. And if I were to do so, to politely unhire them and hire someone else. Like that's how serious they are. They actually put that in their retainer agreement. Like, no, we fight for speech here. We don't fight to suppress it, and we will not betray the First Amendment.